Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the SME entrepreneur. Tonight, we're talking about the opportunities and challenges of a very fragmented interior design market here in India, as well as some trends in 2019 for you, the viewer. And we have an expert panel lined up for you. And let me start by introducing Ashiesh Shah. He's architect and product designer. Tonight, we also have joining us in studio Mrinal Sharma, partner and director, Flipspaces, Meenal Sutharia, program director, ISDI, and as well as Annkur Khosla, principal at Annkur Khosla Design Studio. Thank you all very much for being with us here in studio. And this is an exciting market because I think, there are so many aspects that go into it. It seems really simple perhaps when someone says interior design, but there's just so much that needs to go into it. And I'm really excited to have each of you here with us. Let me start though, as always, by asking our entrepreneurs. And let me start with my immediate right, Mrinal. Yeah. Flipspaces does something very interesting using technology and interior design and the whole aspect of design. Just run us through what you do.
So we are arguably India's first virtual reality-led interior design firm. Conventionally, the method of designing completely relies on the skill set of a designer. So you use conventional tools like a Photoshop or a CorelDRAW to reproduce a design, which may or may not capture the exact design which is required by a client.
Sure.
About 3 to 3.5 years back, when we were designing large commercial spaces, there was a significant challenge that the number of iterations that a design undergoes was not sufficient to reproduce what the client actually requires. We said, why not create a tool that gives the power of design in the hands of the consumer rather than it being dependent on the skill of the designer.
Sure. Okay. So client and client feedback, definitely we will come and talk about. Ashish, we've had you on the show previously, but if you can very briefly tell our viewers what you do.
So I'm an architect by training, but I practice interior architecture. And now we're moving towards product design, where we are doing exactly opposite of what Meenal does. We try to kind of give a voice of our own ethos to a project. And we're now working with villages around the country. We've adopted villages around the country to manufacture luxury products with the crafts. Okay. And it's the first of its kind in India and probably in Asia. And we're trying to kind of give a voice to rural India in urban metro cities around the world. Okay, interesting. So I will discuss that and how that's really panning out. But Annkur, what introduction would you want to give yourself to our viewers?
So we are a bespoke design studio and based in Mumbai, but what we do is projects related with architecture as well as interiors in India as well as internationally. And what I really believe is in originality of design. And we believe that the power and value of design can change the lifestyles of the people for generations to come.
All right, so multiple aspects that are really, the three of you are involved in, but the first and foremost thing that I want to discuss is the people aspect, and I think that's so crucial in this industry. Let me talk about the challenges that exist in this market, and reports suggesting that 80% of it is unorganized for a country like India. Maybe I can come to you first, Meenal, and ask you to talk about the challenges when it comes to people and skilling. Is there enough understanding of why people need to go through skilling? And when we're saying skilling, is it as simple as to say, here's how you become an interior designer, or are there multiple layers to it? And do you want to run us through that?
The profession itself, I think it's going through a huge transformation in India as well as internationally. We have begun to believe, thankfully, that spaces and interiors can actually impact our lives psychologically, as well as, these spaces are repositories of our memories, our culture. So it's very important that we redefine, the profession, and we understand its importance in the built environment and the design of the entire built environment. Coming back to skill sets, I think still India is growing to this understanding, and more than often we are approached by students or by aspiring students who usually have actually just retrofitted or redecorated their homes, and they feel they want to be that. But there are some very bright ones who understand scale and who come from lineages of people involved in the industry. So yes, but I think we need a transformation there.
Okay, definitely. So this question is open to all of you on this panel. One or two of the biggest challenges?
One of the biggest challenge of this profession is there are a lot of expectations from the designer. One being the art of the skill being perfect and precise, as in precision and perfection overrule, and the demand from the interior designer is getting humongously added on with these responsibilities. And what we feel is that also the other one is that the remuneration attached to the designers is not something which is extremely fair, because I feel that we do not see global practices being established by interior designers in India.
But isn't it entrepreneurs like yourself then who can decide on, how the ecosystem is changing when it comes to remuneration and changing that and demanding better wages?
We feel that in order for that to happen, the entire mindset of the entire industry needs to go through a systemic change.
Okay.
It needs to begin with the client believing in contractual obligations, in a method of organized payments with organized contracts, and enabling the client, and with the client having a fair remuneration, the architects and the designers are able to even beef up their entire infrastructures in order to be able to give good quality services to the client, and also for the contractors and vendors to get a bit of a premium, a premium payment system in which they are more enthused to give quality.
Sure. Okay. Remuneration, biggest challenge?
I think remuneration also, I think for the longest time, interior design as a profession is regarded as a silly profession, a profession not as a profession, but something that's done by the side.
Okay.
Yeah. I think now we're
more as a hobby.
More as a hobby. More, it's not something that you can say that I want to be an interior designer. Like when you start off, you either start as an architect or you start as a homemaker, and then you just develop into it. But now I think with colleges like ISDI, we're seeing professional interior designers coming into play. The difference here is that there should be a difference between interior design and interior decoration, which is the big problem in the country today, because even putting a cushion is not interior design.
What is the basic distinction according to you?
The first is structural changes, education, skill set. I think that defines interior design, and I think the day we realize that the designers are different from decorators, all of these problems of remunerations will change. And I also think the second big problem here is originality. I think what we lack in the country is voices of original design styles.
Okay, that's an interesting point, Meenal. If maybe I could get you to respond on that. How do you teach things like originality? Can you teach things like that? How do you encourage your students to think out of the box? For someone who's watching this program to say, where is that big idea going to come from? Can it be taught in colleges and courses like yours?
So I think it's central to our ethos at our college that we are not talking about, we're talking about design thinking. We are teaching them how to think. We're not teaching them how to think exclusively.
Sure.
And when we teach design, there are a lot of, there's a value system that is central to design. And design, I think, is an empowered tool that can do wonders.
But you're saying it can be taught to...
It has to be taught.
Aspects of
it has
design.
to be taught.
Okay.
But originality comes out of the thinking behind, the process behind the design thinking.
Okay. One more quick question as far as skilling is concerned before we discuss other aspects, and that is the role of the government. The government has, of course, programs like Skill India, etc., hoping to change industries like yours. Has that had much of an impact, much of a benefit?
It's beginning, but I think there's a lot of formalization that we require in this industry, a lot of formal recognition.
Sure.
I think we don't even have a proper governing body that would actually dictate, how this industry should function, the do's and don'ts, the rules and regulations. There's no act for interior designers per se, if I'm not mistaken. There is for architects, but
there are local councils like Council of Interior Design.
Yes, but they can't enforce a law. They can't enforce a jurisdiction.
I think the problem here is that there has to be right now what's happening, it's a mushrooming industry. It kind of mushrooms at different spots, and it's localized at certain regions in the country, like metropolitan cities. But what needs to happen is there needs to be a governing body, centralized body in everything. For example,
entrepreneurs like yourself would want to have a governing body.
Absolutely.
Because that would legalize contracts, that would legalize all the problems that she's saying that
Remunerations.
Also, that would put contractual boundings towards the contracting companies.
Sure.
For example, like lighting, and that would kind of trickle down the government regulations to the lowest laborer.
Okay, we're going to take a very quick break on that note, but we will continue talking about interior design, talking about the role of technology in the interior design space, as well as some of the challenges and the opportunities for 2019. Back in just a bit. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight on the show we're talking about the interior design space, opportunities, trends and challenges for you, the SME entrepreneur. Let's talk about technology, and I want to come to you on this, Mrinal, and talk about the fact that on one hand, of course, technology is evolving to the extent where you are doing, AR, VR, etc. But do you see enough of that happening? What's going to change for someone watching this interview? Could you maybe, sort of predict what sort of technologies they should be using? Where can they learn how to do that marriage of the two then between technology and interior design?
Okay. So what we have created for ourselves is quite a niche, but it is something that will become quite prevalent in the coming few years, because if big companies like Google, HTC, if they're coming up with their own smart devices, the future is not very, very far. Okay. Very soon we should be looking at a technology which will primarily replace something like a Photoshop or a CorelDRAW or even AutoCAD to that extent, wherein the entire structural modeling of a place, which is completely dependent on the skill of a designer, can be calibrated. You can put artificial intelligence into it, and basically taking certain few parameters from the client, you can create an optimized layout and even an optimized design. Okay. We have done that to some extent, but we are still far away.
So how did you then learn about these emerging technologies as an entrepreneur?
Exactly. So when we were about to curate this technology, we were deciding what platforms to work on. Fortunately, we had a technology team that time, but then we said that the closest to it can be a gaming engine, because game is the closest to simulation of a reality. Okay. So we kind of took in a gaming team that was into making high-end games, and the same platform that is used to create a game called Counter-Strike, which is the world's widely played game, is the platform that is now used for designing, and it's a wonderful experience. In fact,
sure. The other side of technology, and I want to talk about quickly, and this is for all of you, but maybe I can come to you first, Meenal, is social media. Using of, say, things like Instagram, Facebook, etc., using of hashtags, training your employees how to be more savvy about interior design, and also as entrepreneurs learning how quickly social media is changing and being able to use that.
Sure. So I believe it has been a game changer because of the fact that if you're genuinely creating some good piece of art, it's easier to reach a wide audience. But at the same time, I see a flip side to that also, is that it may not be enough for you to generate business if your body of work is not promising enough, and if you do not have the right ecosystems in place, it may backfire. Okay. So it's a great way to showcase, but then you have to develop yourself to handle that kind of
I want to tweak the same question for the two of you and say maybe one mistake that you see peers or people who are just entering the industry making on social media when it comes to talking about their businesses, and also maybe something that you think is working really well and you wish more entrepreneurs used it or knew about it.
So I feel that social media, I feel there's also the first movers advantage, which, there is a series of designers who probably have come up with more original content and have been the reason, and that has really buffeted to cause that business to come in, like how Mrinal was mentioning. I think lack of originality of the ideas and trying to garner, using, misuse of content, trying to garner the same kind of mileage from others using media, other content to your own content can also be quite misrepresenting, and one has to be very, you have to come up with a good social media plan if that is what the company wants, and it needs to be innovative, it needs to be contributive. I think everyone's getting conscious about their screen time. You know, you have apps which control how much time you want to spend on the phone. So what is it that you are adding to that person's life for which he should listen to your voice and follow you?
Okay, Ashish, you work very closely with celebrities, so is it easier for you than to use social media?
I think yes, I think that I cannot deny, but I also feel like there are certain rules to social media. There are rules to how much to use it, when to use it. You have to, there are behavioral rules, like if you're sitting in a private event, you should not use social media because it can be invasion of privacy. If you're at a client's house, do not use it even if it's your work unless they agree to you know, so these are certain good manners of social media that I count. I think also refrain from putting too much of your personal life in social media, like what am I eating, where am I going, what am I doing, that kind of.
You just lost a whole bunch of millennial audience.
No, I don't think so. I think the millennials are changing. I think today they, because the feeds are so heavy today, that if I see someone telling me what they're doing every minute, I want to skip that. But if I see someone who kind of tells me things that is informative for me, I'll want to keep on going back to that person constantly. So I feel like social media, there should be a code of conduct, and I also feel like do not clutter other people's feeds. You know, I think it's nice to kind of contain that in a way that there's something relevant or there's relevance to your context.
You were also talking previously about the use of, you know, sort of local materials, etc. And I do know that at least for the past couple of years, we've seen a huge wave when it comes to the design sensibilities, the use of the different materials that we are using. Is that maybe something that you see sustaining? And this is to all of you, but let me come to you first, Annkur.
I think sustainability and the consciousness to protect the environment is something that is a trend which is on the rise. And it is not only a trend, I would say, it is also something which people deeply believe in. Because you want to save the earth, and we need to ensure that the environment is protected. The use of natural materials and resources very consciously, and also ensuring that we're giving back to nature in the process, is something that we need to be very aware of. And using local craft and material and supporting those enterprises is something that in India we all should work towards that. As in, I think that awareness to appreciate imperfection. You know, the imperfections in, we are seeking perfection, but there is a very, you know, a dismissive and a very non-defined perfection in the imperfection of a work done by a local craftsman.
The wabi-sabi of it, basically.
More the wabi-sabi effect also is one word. And I think that appreciation for that will allow people to give it an intellectual and as well as a monetary and a financial capital term to it.
All right. I'm going to take closing comments. We're running out of time on this panel, and I want to come to you first, Meenal. I'll ask you to comment about, you know, maybe some of the trends that you think 2019 is likely to see.
I will come more from an education perspective, but I think in 2019 we're definitely looking at an emergence of the material industry, because our industry is a very heavy material dependent industry, and I think we need to rethink the way we think about materials, like rightly put across by my panelists here. We have to think that these resources are exhaustible. 20 years down the line, I may not have many of these materials available to put up. What am I going to do about it? So I think the entire industry needs to rethink the a systemic change in the way we approach our materials, from natural materials to man-made materials, and what are we going to do about it? So I'm looking at a lot of global movement in this front.
Sure.
I would speak more from a technology front. I believe if you see the influx of companies which have been funded, the number has crossed about 15 to 20. And primarily it's because the market is so huge in India that almost all these startups can survive with a decent amount of funding. I believe that the next jump will be consolidation of some of these companies and the heavy use of technology, which essentially means that, you know, customers can be more informed than they were before. So they would know possibly how much time it takes to execute a certain project. They would know the array of materials that goes into it, and possibly be able to visualize their home in advance rather than it being governed by somebody's intelligence. So I believe maybe in the next 5 years, technology will have a huge role to play in making the competition stiffer.
Most so definitely for the life of an entrepreneur. How about you, Ashish?
I think let's not forget that interior industry is based on design, you know, and so originality is always going to be trending. If you have an original voice, that's what's going to take you far. That's what's going to be the new future. You are going to be the new future if you have original voice. Sustainability, reusing materials, upcycling, recycling is going to be a key.
Okay.
How you use it in a very aesthetic way and not make it look kitsch is going to be important. And the most important is the resurgence of handmade. Everything is factory made, everything looks perfect, but handmade is always going to be precious.
Okay.
Yeah, even I would have come from the perspective of design, where design will have the value and the power to be able to transform people's lives. And I feel that the intellectual capital attached to design will be valued. The other very important aspect that I feel that needs to come across is we need to make the benefit of mankind our mission, and the benefit to the bank will follow. That is the most important part.
On that very optimistic note, thank you all very much for being here. So technology, definitely, probably the formation of a governance council, and definitely having those indigenous materials that are being promoted on an export market. Some of the things we can look forward to from this space for 2019. That's our show tonight. If you have any feedback for us, do let us know. leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com is our email ID. Also get in touch with us on social media. Tweet at me personally at Sunand_J or LOT_ET now, which is our official Twitter handle, or you can leave your comments on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.